Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. These cage matches have not been going my way. I've been favored outside of the draft. Right after the draft, I've been favored 2 straight weeks and I've lost 2 straight weeks. Gotten absolutely smashed in my own cage. I don't like it. Not one bit. I'm 2-2 on the season. I got to get off the schneid here. That's not why I brought this individual on the show, to help me get off the schneid, because he is one of the sharpest people in the fantasy football industry, formerly of Pro Football Focus, currently at FTN, Jeff Ratcliffe. The Rat Pack, I'm sure, has their own section in the stadium, right here in the arena, ready to cheer on their champion, but I'm going to do what I can to try and beat him. I appreciate you guys being here. Drop a like on this video. Let's see if we can't get over 1,000 likes on this video this week as well. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, ring that notifications bell. This cage match, if you don't really understand what we're doing, if you play a head-to-head on Draftkings every week, you can have overlap, meaning I can draft the same quarterback that my opponent drafts. I can draft the same value running back that my opponent has in their lineup. And you end up playing, instead of a 9v9, you end up playing 8v8, 6v6 if there's a lot of chalk plays that are just clear and glaring volume or values on the slate. Can't do that in a cage match. We're going to snake draft using the salaries on DraftKings. And if I pick somebody, and it's always up to the guest, whether they pick first or second and 2, Jeff has selected for second pick in this, which leaves me the first pick. Whoever I pick at the number 1 spot, he cannot take with his next 2 picks, and so on and so forth. We always play these cage matches for charity. 100% of the ad revenue that this video generates will be donated to my charity. Just like every week, I'll be playing for No Kid Hungry, bringing school lunches and food to kids who are malnourished, food insecure, doing what we can to help these kids get food on their plates. And Jeff is going to be playing for Wags Rescue, wagsrescue.com. They foster dogs. They try and take in dogs and get them out to rightful owners. So rescuing a dog, in my opinion, always better than buying from a kennel or a breeder. Great charity that he's playing for. We're going to be playing for $100 donated to charity. I'm going to bring in Jeff right here. Jeff, how you doing today, man?
I'm fantastic, Alan. I love your charity as well. A lot of people don't realize this about me. This was not my intended career for sure. I have a PhD in anthropology, and my dissertation actually explored the intersection of hunger and poverty in U.S. urban settings. So food insecurity, all of that, a topic that is, near and dear to me as well. So it's a fantastic charity.
I did not know that about you. And we've spent time at like FSGAs, at conferences, industry things together. I never knew that about you.
Yeah,
like, it's funny how everybody falls into the fantasy football world, right? Nobody goes to college going, you know what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a fantasy football writer. Nobody says that. That's not a major. But we all end up here, and it's funny because we get a lot of very intelligent, highly educated people that are producing content in this space, and I'm really glad to have you on the show. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff and all the great stuff that you guys have over the amazing team that you've assembled over at FTN?
Yeah, it's crazy. We've only been up for 90 days, and it's kind of shocking to look at it and say, hey, we have all of this at ftnfantasy.com right now, ftndaily.com, and ftnbets.com. So really pick your poison in terms of the sports portfolio. We have you covered there. Of course, on Twitter, at Jeff Ratcliffe, on Instagram, at Jeff Ratcliffe, on SiriusXM Monday through Fridays, 10 to noon Eastern, the Jeff Ratcliffe Show. And then on Sunday mornings on your television, CBS Sports Network from 8 to noon Eastern, that other pregame show, which is a lot of fun to do.
Well, I think that's great. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job over at FTM. Congratulations on the launch. Congratulations on the success. It's really tough. This is a tough year in terms of fantasy football content, getting clicks, everything else. So I'm glad that you guys were able to launch and do the things that you're doing over there. So you're letting me pick first. I think that there are other routes that I could go with this first pick, but I'm just going to keep it simple. I was told once to just that look, keep it simple, stupid. So I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to go with Ezekiel Elliott. My number 1 overall play, I've said for like 4 straight weeks. This is the 5th straight week. This is a $9,000 running back on DraftKings, and he's 7,800. So he's playing at home. He is favored. He should get the ball 20 times, 20 touches this week combined between his receptions and his carries. He is getting a monstrous amount of inside the 5 touches, the highest leverage touches that we have for any running back. I think he's on pace for like 40. I was going to tweet this out yesterday. He's on pace for like 48 carries from the 5-yard line and in, which would be the most since 2005. And in 2009, Adrian Peterson, wasn't that the year that he won the MVP? He had 30 of those such touches. So Ezekiel Elliott just off the charts in terms of the underlying stats that I look at. Massive touchdown upside, 100-yard bonus upside here for me. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm starting with Ezekiel Elliott, and I'll toss it back to you for 2, and hopefully I get one of the guys that I want in return.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the play, of course, obviously game script wise, any game that Dallas is involved in. I mean, you talk about Zeke, man, oh man, there's more than just Zeke to that offense that is on crazy paces here. But I actually am going to follow suit with you here and sort of match the type of play and go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think the matchup is really fantastic. I know the matchup's really fantastic against that Raiders defense. They're really rivaling the Panthers. And maybe it's a little biased here because Kenyon Drake made the Panthers run defense look good, which shouldn't happen, but he managed to wait. Everybody in season long, like, this is Kenyon Drake. I don't know why we're so shocked. He was terrible between weeks 10 and 14 last year.
Was he though? The volume was good. My issue is that, like, they were throwing him the ball like 10% plus every single week, and now they've turned him, this guy who was, everybody's argument was he's just a pass catching back, and now they've turned him into, well, now he's Eric Rhett now in one off season. How did that happen?
I guess anything's possible in 2020, and certainly with with Kenyon Drake. I mean, it is Kenyon Drake, though. It's kind of, these are some of the things you sign up for. I'm not going to take Brandon Cooks today, but hey, Brandon Cooks, that's what you signed up for. Like, Brandon Cooks will give you a goose egg. He's good for at least one every year. So you just got to know the players in season-long fantasy football. But I love the matchup for Edwards-Helaire. I love the volume. I love the usage.
He's amazing.
Third down, seeing a little too much of Darrell Henderson out there, but I'll take it. And I think this is a game where they lean on the run, and he just dominates there. So that was an easy one. But, I mentioned that Dallas contest, and I'm going to get in on that game too. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott for my second pick. And the reason why I'm doing it is this dude is on pace. It's not 7,000 yards quite, but it's almost 7,000 yards for the season, which, hey, he can't keep it up. But just when we thought like, oh yeah, he can't keep it up, he actually increased that number last week. They're so set up for the passing game. I've said it. I'm not a bold take guy. I don't do bold takes because I think they're silly. I think it's clickbait. Like, click here, here's my bold take. I don't want to do that. But this might be a little bold. I think he breaks the passing yard record. I think he breaks Peyton Manning's record. I think Russell Wilson also breaks the passing touchdown record this season. Ooh. And I don't think that's that bold given where we are currently. So I'm going to get in on that high scoring contest.
Look, attacking teams or games that have really high totals is always a great way to go. There's a big correlation between team total and quarterback scoring. Efficiency is what we're looking for with quarterbacks. Dak has certainly been efficient this year. You could have won the Millionaire Maker for the last 3 weeks if all you did was stack Dak Prescott and that Cowboys game. For 3 weeks, you'd have won the Millie Maker. So I'm not saying that you're going to win the Millie Maker here in week 5, but each of the past 3 weeks you have. So you're going with him. Locking in a quarterback, that leaves it so that I don't have to take a quarterback until late. I can do whatever I want at quarterback now because yours is locked. I'm going to stay at running back here. And based on the fact that he was already getting great usage, he's only 6,400, full PPR, obviously on DraftKings. The running backs don't matter crowd is having a ticker tape parade at this point with Mike Davis taking over essentially point for point with what Christian McCaffrey was doing, 23 and 22.1 points in his first 2 games as the starter. And now Bonifant is on IR, correct?
Yes, he is.
So now we might actually see Mike Davis get, let's just say, Christian McCaffrey type snaps and usage moving forward when McCaffrey was playing 99% of snaps last year for the Carolina Panthers at running back. If Mike Davis gets that sort of number, and his elusive rating is fantastic so far, he is a massive part of this offense, and the matchup with Atlanta couldn't be much better with them allowing as many targets and catches to opposing running backs. This is a puzzle pieces fit sort of play. Great DraftKings play. The price is nowhere near where it should be, even though it's come up 700 from week 4 to week 5. Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Davis, I like my floor at running back.
Yeah, it's pretty solid there. I mean, the running backs don't matter, crowd. I have a New York Giants roster that might prove otherwise, that you can't just simply plug and play and get the same production. Of course, it's a different offense. It's a different system. I'm actually surprised at Mike Davis's play so far. He's really a jag type on the ground, but I just didn't expect this kind of usage in the passing game.
Same.
And so, kudos there. I did have some season-long people because I had recommended Jerick McKinnon over him that week that all happened. I'm sticking to my story. If I had to hop back in time in the DeLorean, I still would go with Jerick McKinnon as the better ad, because Mike Davis, you got to return this dude to Blockbuster next week when Christian McCaffrey comes back. You don't have to do that with Jerick McKinnon, even when Raheem Mostert is officially back and ready to roll. So that's kind of where I am with that. But I think I'll follow suit here with you at running back, and I'm going to actually go with some potential for some more volume here. And I think this game script really works out for the Indianapolis Colts, where they get to do what they want to do, which is run the freaking football, get out to a lead and run the football. And they are a much better defense than what Cleveland faced last year. So I'm going to put Jonathan Taylor in this lineup as well.
Okay. My mentions have been on fire since Sunday, because I'm of the ilk that Jonathan Taylor is good. And apparently there are a lot of people that think that Jonathan Taylor is hashtag not good, or like you said, just a guy, a jag. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, especially running behind this line and the way that they want to run their offense. I would love to see him get more. What's he playing, like 44% of the snaps right now? Like they got two just the guys behind him. I want to see him get more touches. When he ran the ball 28 times or had 28 touches in week 2, that's what I want to see, 20 plus touches a week at him. Do you think that sort of usage is coming for Jonathan Taylor? Where do you stand on him as a player? Because I value your analysis on this type of stuff.
Sure. I think that's a bunch of box score scouting, and that's people who aren't really watching the game. We're watching the player who we saw also at the college level. And I realized, okay, fine, that was last year. But the dude was wildly productive at the college level, and that wasn't a fluke whatsoever. He also he has that rare combination of size and speed for the position. He's not an undersized guy for the position whatsoever. I do think there is a sort of irrational love out of Frank Reich for Jordan Wilkins. He has given numerous interviews this year where he said that Jordan Wilkins is a really good player, blah, 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 all that lip service. But, I'm still, here of this mindset that, yes, he is not just a guy. He's a pretty darn good football player, and he's shown it multiple times. Now, the volume, really, I'm thinking this is going to be the right game script here, though, because that Colts defense is no joke, and it's going to be a big challenge there for Cleveland to do what they want to do, which is largely the same thing that Indy wants to do, right? They want to get out to a lead and they want to run the football, even without Kareem Hunt, or without Nick Chubb, that is, with Kareem Hunt in the lead role. I just don't think they can accomplish that against this defense. I mean, even Xavier Rhodes, who we've written this dude off last year in Minnesota, is playing good football for this team. So I don't buy it, man. I don't buy it. I think that people are making much ado about nothing there with Jonathan Taylor. Okay.
And you brought up Kareem Hunt, and I told you that before the show I wanted to ask you a question about somebody, but I didn't want to say who it was, so I'm not going to bury the lead here. Kareem Hunt was getting 37% of the running back carries so far this season through 4 weeks, and Nick Chubb was getting 43% of the running back carries for the Cleveland Browns through the first 4 weeks of the season. Nick Chubb on IR. Does this team change one person's role, meaning that they take Johnson and move him into that maybe Nick Chubb role and maybe give him a few less runs? Or do they change two people's roles and just say, and this is kind of my opinion of the way that I think that it's going to go. I think that Kareem Hunt sees at around or just over 60% of the running back rushes on Cleveland. Because the strata, the tiers, if you will, between Nick Chubb's talent and Kareem Hunt's talent is 1A, 1 and 1A. The talent difference between Johnson and Hunt is a different tier, right? Johnson's a good running back, but he's not Kareem Hunt. He's not Nick Chubb good. Do you think that they're going to stay with this and give Nick Chubb like 40 to 45% of the carries, give Johnson 40% of the carries or 35% of the carries? Or do you think that this is Kareem Hunt going to a massive volume bump, kind of like when he was on the Chiefs? Kind of like when Nick Chubb was the lead guy from weeks 1 through 8 last year.
Yeah, I think that's actually the more likely case. That's how I'm currently projecting things. D'Ernest Johnson came in, filled in. It was one of the strangest games. I mean, Dallas almost found a way to come back in that one as well. One of the strangest games that I can remember, when you just left and right, there were big plays being ripped off by Cleveland's offense. And it's a good offense, no doubt, but it isn't that good. And so I'm not buying that line from D'Ernest Johnson last week. I could see another 10, 12 carries out of him, but that, you're exactly right. That sort of flips that role with Kareem Hunt. And Kareem Hunt really, I mean, they were using him down in the red zone, in the goal line region. They're confident in him. And this is not a pass catching back. This isn't a Theo Riddick guy, even though he's sort of been labeled as that role in that offense is like, oh, well, he's the pass catching guy and Nick Chubb's the early down guy. That's not what he was. I mean, this guy won the rushing title, he's an absolute bell cow. So I agree with you. And actually in season long fantasy rankings, I do have him as top 10 for the week.
Okay, fair enough. I do like him. And I could pick him to kind of go against your, to go straight up against your Jonathan Taylor pick. But I'm going to save a little bit of money because there's a lot of salary difference there. I'm going to go down to David Johnson. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. He's popping as a great value in a lot of different projection models because of his price. Jacksonville, not very amazing. They're just not. Defensively, they've allowed a ton. Houston with one of the highest team totals on the week, one of 4 teams with an implied team total of 30 or above. David Johnson, I don't think that he's going to get, 25 touches in this game. But if he gets 15 to 20 in this game with some inclusion in the pass game, definitely the 1 to 5 usage or goal line to 5 yard line usage that he gets, if they score 4 touchdowns, David Johnson should be able to get 1 against Jacksonville. And at 5K, he's just priced too cheap here, and it's going to allow me to spend somewhere else. That's going to lock up my flex, but it gives me Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Davis, and David Johnson, who I have as 3 of the top 5 running backs on the slate, if not 3 of the top 4 running backs on the slate. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is clearly my number 2, so I love that pick from you. And I kind of like where I'm at. Now I can go just do other things.
Yeah, the one concern that I had with David Johnson last week was that usage with a little too much Randy Johnson. I'm going to call him Randy, not Duke. That is his real first name. Nice. Just like Robbie is Blake Bortles' real first name. But there was too much of it. Now, I don't know. Was that Bill O'Brien? Was that what they're going to do going beyond Bill O'Brien? I have no idea. But, I do agree with you there that he is a great play this week regardless. So I like that from you right there. I'm looking down through this, and I think it's time for me to dip into the wide receivers. And I call me a glutton for punishment here, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna invest in the Giants wideouts, and I'm gonna go with Darius Slayton.
I don't hate it.
We know the ceiling is there.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's just this season has been such a mess with Daniel Jones just in general. But, in season long, I'm buying in on him as a quality streamer this week. I couldn't go as far as using him in this matchup here, but, I could see it for DFS purposes, but I really love the ceiling out of Darius Slayton in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've called the Cowboys the traveling fantasy carnival, like both on offense and on defense. It's like, it's straight out of Gladiator every single Sunday. Are you not entertained? We're getting like 70, 80, 90 points per game out of this matchup. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen this week. We'll have to see if Daniel Jones can produce that sort of play. But I definitely think that it's on the table at the very, very least. And maybe Clapper can get out of his own way and actually score some points against his former team. Coming back to me here, there's some wide receivers that I think are interesting. And just in case, I do have to mention this, not just for you, but for the audience as well. If a player is out or a game gets canceled, right? So if a player suddenly on Friday, we draft every Wednesday. If on Thursday or Friday practice, a player is deemed out, you don't have to take a 0 in that spot. You can change that player for another player for as much salary as you have remaining. Now, if their game is canceled for COVID reasons and you have multiple players out, you can switch all the players who are out by Sunday morning, but anybody else that you draft has to stay. If you have a flex available, you can obviously move the flex around as your lineup warrants, but you can't change players that aren't being designated as out for the weekend. So I'm sure people are going to say, what do we do if? Well, that's what we do if. Now, there's another question that comes to mind for me this week, and that question is, when you've got a couple of players at wide receiver, and we've gone with the fact that DJ Moore is more the possession guy, and for his career, Robbie Anderson has been the downfield guy. But if you look at the way that they're being used, and sometimes it's just a matter of comfort with a quarterback, rapport with a quarterback. Right now, it looks like Robbie Anderson is the high floor play at wide receiver in Carolina. And I'm extremely confused because he's never been that. His lowest target output was against the Chargers, who have a very good defensive backfield, in week 3. Against Tampa Bay, who has good corners, 10 targets. Against Arizona with Peterson, 11 targets. Maybe Peterson was locked up on more, and so Teddy Two Gloves was looking the other direction. And Vegas just gets beat every which way from Sunday. But at 5,900, I really like Robbie Anderson this week against Atlanta, who is currently signing guys off the street to play defensive back. And I understand that it's very possible that having multiple Panthers in a lineup may not be the way to go, but I'm going to go with the volume versus the price for both Mike Davis and Robbie Anderson. I'm just going to plug him in here and just pray, I suppose.
You know, it's interesting with Robbie Anderson. He DJ Moore did outsnap him last week.
Mm-hmm.
Was that? But maybe we undersold a little bit that connection that he had. You know, this is his college head coach. This is, Matt Rule and him go back to Temple University. Shout out Temple University. That's where I received my PhD from. So I love my Temple Owls, no doubt about it. But he's been playing good football. And, I had always said with the Jets, he was miscast as a number 1, right? He wasn't a true X receiver. He's a guy who is a field stretcher. But they're using him in creative ways now, and I actually really like what's going on in Carolina. I mean, the wonderkind that everybody kept talking about here with Joe Brady, it's actually sort of panning out. So I do like that. However, that being said, I think I'm going to go on the other side of this match, or the other
pick.
Yeah, I think so. Because I thought you were going to say DJ Moore, and I did have him on my list here. So I think I keep saying this about certain matchups. I said it about Odell Beckham Jr. last week. I said, hey, if it doesn't happen this week, it isn't going to happen. Well, I'm saying that about DJ Moore this week. If it doesn't happen this week, it isn't going to happen. And what I like is, Teddy is Teddy. Teddy's Teddy. He's not going to throw the ball downfield, but they have all of these weapons to run after catch. So this is the week I think it does happen for DJ Moore. So I actually had him queued up here.
Nice. Well, we have a challenge play. My Mike Davis and Robbie Anderson against your DJ Moore. I've said before, it's not about, when you get into the cage, it's not just about the matchups and the point per dollar and having the meta guy. It's about trying to inflict as much pain on your opponent as you possibly can within the rules. And if one of our guys, either one of our wide receivers gets into the box, the other one's going to be feeling it come Sunday. Now, I'm going to look for a little bit of value here that I think is still on the board. And I think there are multiple plays down in this range. I'm going to go with Damiere Byrd, who I've said when Cam was the quarterback that these New England wide receivers were guys that I wanted to play when they were underdogs, and I wanted to avoid when they were going to be playing from ahead and running the ball 50 times a game with Cam and the 3 running backs that play behind him, right? But now all that's out the window as Cam is wearing Fendi scarves and posting to mask up and stay away from people. And now we've got Jared Stidham is starting at quarterback this week? Or is it going to be, are they going to go back to Hoyer? Either way, I don't care, because either one of these guys is going to have to throw the ball. And we saw what happened against Kansas City, where Damiere Byrd got targeted 10 times and is still the absolute minimum salary on Draftkings against Denver. And if this game doesn't go for COVID reasons, I can pivot because I think that there are other minish salary type players that are out there, but this is going to allow me to go grab one or two guys that I want that I think are going to be really solid.
I was surprised to see his usage. I'll be honest with you. You know, this is a guy a few years ago sort of lit up the preseason very briefly there, had, you know, dynasty folks a buzz, and then really hasn't surfaced since. Briefly, I mean, I had a cup of coffee a couple times, you know, recently, but that was surprising to see him out targeting Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman just really wasn't used effectively there. And then, of course, I'm not going to blame him on that interception. I think Romo did a really good job of identifying the fact that, like, Edelman wasn't open, so he did not expect a target on that play. The Tyrann Mathieu return. But hey, yeah, when you're looking at that price point, it's super tempting to to get him in there. Of course, I sort of crossed some of these guys out for fear that games aren't played. You know, you just don't know what the Stephon Gilmore thing. Yep. That's definitely very concerning, especially given the fact that he was just on the field too. So I crossed some of those guys out, but I do obviously have him coming in pretty high.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference for me strategy wise, right? So cage match strategy wise this week versus last week. Last week, Damiere Byrd I thought was going to be a fantastic value, and I picked him in the cage match. And the problem was, when that game was taken off the board, there were no other pivots. There was nobody else at minimum salary that I could reasonably pivot to and have the same expectation. I did pivot to Mooney at 3K, who got me 9 points, so like it didn't kill me. But this week I think is drastically different. I think that there are multiple plays at 3,200 and down, which is different from other weeks at wide receiver. There are very viable min salary plays this week on DraftKings at wide receiver. So I'll lock in Bird because I think he's the best one. And if the game doesn't go, I will pivot to one of the other ones. I'm hoping it's Bird, though. I'm not picking him to pivot, obviously, at minimum salary.
No, it makes sense. And this could be the start of something good for Damiere Byrd. There's been just ample opportunity in that receiver core really for a couple of years at this point.
Yeah, no
talent.
And
finally somebody stepping up and taking that opportunity. When I sat down to construct, maybe some of the directions that I could go, I was looking through, and there's a lot of interesting plays this week at running back. So I'm going to go back to my to my flex spot here. But looking at I'm trying to get the price point. Beautiful slow computer, the benefits of doing things live right here. But I look at some of the matchups, and there's a couple that do stand out. I already identified the one that I was targeting in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I do think that there's another one that is priced just a little too high for where I currently am with this build. So I'm going to save that. I'll talk about it maybe after we're done building these out. But I ordinarily don't like to go opposite, have two running backs facing each other. However, I do think that we talked about Kareem Hunt earlier. I do think that even in a game where they're behind, he offers so much in the passing game that I don't think this is like script dependent or anything like that. And he could still put up some really quality points here. So I'm going to flex him out.
Fair enough. I mean, in Kareem Hunt, it's not like they're 15-point dogs here. It's like it's within a field goal. They're like 2.5-point dogs in Indy. This could be a close game. Typically, I will stay away from two running backs in the same game. However, if they're both volume and value, they're volume guys at value, and game flow independent guys like Kareem Hunt. If you're projecting that Indy's going to be playing from ahead and running Taylor, that means that Cleveland's going to have to throw. And if Cleveland has to throw, then Kareem Hunt is going to get 5-6 targets in this game. And stay involved, as well as probably get the majority of the inside the 5 carries. So I don't hate it. There are definitely running backs that I will remove from that rule, right? Like Mike Davis being one of them, Christian McCaffrey being another one. It's like, it doesn't matter. Ezekiel Elliott, if he's in the game and his team's losing, they're just going to throw it to him more. If they're in the game and they're winning, it's probably because of him doing things, right? So I don't mind it for specific running backs, and Kareem Hunt is certainly one of those guys that I don't mind it with. So I've got a few ways that I can go here. And I haven't really decided which one it's going to be yet, because I think that this is a week different from other weeks that you can or want to pay up for the premium tight ends, right? Guys like Kittle, Kelsey, Waller are all just super studs this week. But I also want to have something that's going to take away from you a little bit. And I think that I have the salary to make it work. And that's Tyreek Hill, who has been scoring touchdowns like crazy. And maybe regression is going to rear its ugly head this week against me, and he's not going to get his way into the end zone. But the creativity that the Chiefs offense has utilized around the goal line now brings him more into play with these little pistol touch passes that are counting as receptions, and they've used them with him and with Hardman when they get around the goal line to do a few things. One, it opens up the defense to allow Clyde Edwards-Helaire to run inside, because the linebackers kind of have to respect and go with the speed, and if they don't, then they just toss it to the speed guy and they get the edge, and it's all over. He also has deep playability, clearly, maybe the best ever. Him and Randy Moss, maybe D-Jack's in that argument as well. And against Las Vegas, this is a situation where I want to buy the Kansas City offense. And this is the easiest way for me to buy it in a way that a player should score me 10 to 12 points without a touchdown and could score me 25 to 30 plus if he actually connects on a 50 or a 60 yard touchdown. So I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill, the very nice price of 6,900.
Very nice indeed. And you figure one of those blow up games could happen at any point. Tyreek Hill is one of those players, like if he went out and he had, let's say he had like 330 yards and 5 touchdown receptions, we'd be like, yeah, that was bound to happen one of these days, right? Like,
blocker. Yeah, that's he could do that.
It could happen. Anybody else, like we're just completely dumbfounded. And then for him, it could happen. So I'm going to go wide receiver here as well. And now I'm looking at what I did, and I probably could have got that other running back in if everything unfolds the way I think it's going to here. But oh well, is c'est la vie. I'm going to go and get my stack in here with Dak Prescott and take CeeDee Lamb. The 2 touchdowns last week. Now, it has been a bumpy ride between the Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb thing. But what I do like is where he's being used in the field. So last week, Amari Cooper didn't even have an 8 ADOT. So really close to the line of scrimmage. CeeDee was just over 13. Michael Gallup was way down the field at 16.8. So I kind of like that usage where he's being used. I like the red zone work as well. And obviously, just getting a piece of that game is typically a good thing.
All right. So CeeDee Lamb here for you. Look, stacking up the Cowboys game is never a problem. Now, again, your lineup, I like this because your lineup is running basically head-to-head against mine at this point. So, like, if the Cowboys get out to a massive lead and Dak only has maybe 280 with 2 touchdowns, right? And it's a Zeke game where he gets it 25 plus times, then I think I have the advantage. If the Giants keep pace and Dak throws for 400 yards again, I think you might have the advantage in this situation. So like it creates this great push and pull, and that's one of the reasons that I really like this this cage match. So, you know, on a week in, week out basis. I think I need to take away from you a little bit here. There's a couple of routes that I thought I could have gone. I'm going to go a little bit of a different one here because what it's going to open up for me. I said that paying up at tight end is entirely viable this week, right? With Kelsey being as great as he is, but I took Tyreek Hill. Darren Waller is an every week thing pretty much at this point. As long as he's not playing against New England, he's going to get his 10 plus targets, especially with the injuries that Las Vegas has seen in their defensive backfield. I would have the secondary stack with Hill to Waller, but I'm going to try and get myself another piece of this Dallas Giants, Cowboys Giants fantasy carnival. I'm going to get my ticket to ride on the Ferris wheel. I'm going to get me a funnel cake, hopefully with a little bit of Nutella and maybe some whipped cream, and plug in Evan Ingram at 4,600. I hate the way that they're deploying him, but I don't know if that matters against the Cowboys. Yeah. So we've spoken about this for like 2.5 weeks, that like Jason Garrett thinks that Evan Ingram is Jason Witten, and he's not. And I would love it if they would actually stretch the field a little bit more with him. It's not like Danny Dimes doesn't have the arm talent to get him the ball down the field. It's just, this is my offense and this is what a tight end does in my offense, as opposed to let me tailor a few plays around the hyper athletic tight end that we have and get him dragging across the field and running slants and getting him to spaces where his athleticism against linebackers or safeties can really be exploited and he can win. But like I said, maybe none of that matters against Dallas because they've just been so bad at tackling and coverage and everything else that now we have a situation where if Evan Ingram breaks a long one at 4,600, we're looking at an absolute smash play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, he needs to learn that there aren't just catch and fall down tight ends. I mean, it's a different era for the position. I do think he's trending in the right direction, though, after last week. The box score, I hate fantasy scoring for tight ends. I'm telling you, and tight end premium doesn't even fix it because Donald Parham outscored Hunter Henry last week, and he played one freaking snap. I hate the way that we score it, man. Absolutely hate it. And people were led to believe that that wasn't that great of a game for Evan Ingram. The dude had 10 targets, man. 6 for 35. Okay, whatever, but 10 targets. I love that call right there. I had him on my short list, but, you know, I couldn't ultimately fit him in and do some of the other things that I wanted to do. But I mean, hey, getting a piece of that game is a great idea. I'll tell you this, though. I am in the Philadelphia area, so obviously I get to see a lot of the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles cannot cover tight end. They can't do it whatsoever. And it's not just George Kittle. Logan Thomas early in the season had his way against him. They can't cover tight end. A big game feels like it's brewing for Eric Ebron. Like, we kind of forgot about them because of the unplanned bye, but I'm going to sneak Eric Ebron in there because we know, you know, especially down in the red zone, the dude has done some damage in recent seasons. So I'm firing him up.
I like that pick. Eric Ebron, with the volume that he's gotten, 7 targets against Houston, 5 against Denver. He's only 4K. As you mentioned, all the red zone and end zone usage here. I don't mind it. I really don't. He's been good. You have a defense to pick at 2,300. So I'm going to go because I still have a defensive slot available to pick. So you can't pick that defense. You can't pick the quarterback. I'll make my last 2 picks here. I'm going to do something I don't normally do on defense. And because you have to go low, I'm going to go high. And that's going to be with the Steelers, who blitz more than pretty much anybody. And Philadelphia is, like you said, you're in Philly. How good's that offensive line right now for the Eagles?
They're actually, this is breaking news. They're starting 5 overturned trash cans this week because they're actually better than the existing offensive linemen.
Okay, well, that being known, I think that the Steelers' defensive line, who blitzes more than pretty much anybody and has gotten 15 sacks through their first 3 games, might be able to get around those overturned trash cans. So I'm going to pay up on defense here because I always try to go for pressure. And I try to go for teams that are going to have to drop back a lot. And they just have no talent on the outside right now. No, all apologies to the amazing athletes who are playing in the NFL for the Philadelphia Eagles at wideout, but like they're just not top-notch NFL caliber wide. They're rostering XFL rejects at this point. And that's not going to fly against, no pun intended for Fly Eagles Fly there. But no pun intended, but that's not going to fly against the Steelers rush and defensive back combo here, considering that the way that you score defensive points is through getting pressure on the passer. Pressure leads to sacks. Sacks lead to strip sacks, lead to hurried throws, lead to pick sixes on the outside. I'm going to shoot for the moon here and go for the upside. And I'm going to play my quarterback because I can finish off my team. And I could have gone with Teddy Bridgewater. I noticed that chat thought that I was going to go that route, but I'm going to go with Matt Ryan against Carolina instead of just putting all my eggs in the Carolina basket. At home, 300 yards is always on the table for Matt Ryan anytime that he takes the field. I think that this game is one of the more potential shootouts that is a little bit sneakier than some of the other ones, mostly because neither defense can stop anybody. So touchdowns should not be at a premium here. They should be pretty bountiful. So if Matt Ryan can throw for multiple touchdowns, as he has, I think his last, I don't have the stat on me, so apologies if it's going to be wrong, but I know it's going to be at Best Buys this week. I think the last 12 divisional matchups that he's had, he has either thrown for 300 yards, which happened 9 times, or the 3 games that he didn't throw for 300 yards, threw for multiple touchdowns. I think that that's definitely on the table for him again this week. And he's only 6,100, so I get a nice little bargain there with Matt Ryan to push and pull against Mike Davis and Robbie Anderson. So my lineup finishing up with Matt Ryan, Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson, Damiere Byrd, hopefully that game goes, Tyreek Hill, Evan Ingram, David Johnson, DFJ, And the Steelers defenses I was able to pay up. And who is your 2,300 or less DST, Jeff?
You know, honestly, they're not great choices down here. I was looking at the Titans, but you know, they may not play. Who knows what's going to happen at this point?
They're actually my favorite defense down in this range because Josh Allen's been great, but like he still has fumble interception possibilities.
That's exactly right. I mean, he's definitely played a lot better. So I have them penciled in for now, but if that game ends up getting canceled, then I'm going to end up going with the Bengals at 2,300. But for now, it is the Titans. I do want to talk about the Falcons really quickly, though.
Go for it.
Julio Jones is far from a lock to play this week. And you know, a lot of people are concerned about Calvin Ridley. That was a sort of a perfect storm, though, for Ridley because he was playing hurt and he was shadowed by Jair Alexander. So I wouldn't worry too much about him. We have this recency bias in fantasy football and gambling all the time. You know, let's look at the whole body of September, you know, the whole first 4 weeks and not just last week with him. He's going to be fine going forward. And that could even be as early as this week because we've seen, you know, there's been a couple wideouts who put up some monster lines, including Keenan Allen against Carolina. So I do like the Matt Ryan call out there. It's always volatile with Matt Ryan, but we know that the ceiling is very high.
And you mentioned like Julio Jones got injured again, that hamstring. I don't know if he's ever going to be the same, or at least not the same, but like, I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain health for an entire 16-game season at his age and how many years and mileage he has on him. And I mentioned that if Damiere Byrd does not go, I have the possibility to pivot to another $3,000 wide receiver. And it's Zacchaeus. He's right there for 3,000. In case that's not there, he's my backup. You mentioned your pivot. He's probably going to end up being my pivot in the case that Damiere Byrd's game doesn't go. And if Julio Jones is out, then I have enough wherewithal to get to him. And then there's other players as well that are in that range. I think there's plenty of super bargain wide receivers this week, which is unique to this season. We haven't seen this many guys that are projected to play as many snaps or 15 targets the last 2 weeks for him with the injuries that have existed for the Falcons. So Jeff, thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. Guys, there will be links for both charities down below in the description. Just click show more, drop a like, subscribe, and look out for another video. It's going to be right there.
He's a legend.